Hello and welcome to the Music Mission. Today I've got two guests with me, Dexter Cave and Jeff Zhang. I just whacked the mic. Introduce yourself, please, fellas.
So I'm Jeff. I work currently as a voiceover studio engineer, recording voiceovers for ads, for corporate stuff, for government stuff. And yeah, I do my own stuff on the side, writing music, producing beats, and yeah, a whole bunch of other stuff like coding. And that's me.
Nice.
I'm Dexter. I work primarily doing post-production sound stuff for film actually not even just post, all forms of production for film with regards to sound. So doing on-set sound recording stuff, dialogue editing, music editing, sound effects editing, mixing, etc. I'm also much the same as Jeff. I do a lot of other things that, you like maybe this is a job.
That's exactly the thing.
Maybe
it can become a thing.
Hey, Pani, do you need anything done? And he goes, yeah, I do. And you go, sick. I know how to do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I want to be able to consolidate all the things that I really enjoy doing into like one thing. Like in the same way that a YouTuber is self-sufficient, they produce their content and that's all they need to do. They don't need to it's nice to be able to collaborate with other people. But I think I would like to be able to be like, okay, this is my artwork.
Yeah, you distill
value.
all my skills and all my practical experiences into this one job, and one source of income.
Right, that has its own value, that holds itself up. And
Have you seen those videos where YouTubers break down how they
where they get their money
from and how they do their stuff? It's pretty insane. Like Linus Tech Tips. So we haven't actually introduced what we're doing this episode, which is talking about technology
and how it relates, I guess, to how you build your own online presence and
100%
creative value, I guess.
Yeah. Linus Tech Tips, he says YouTube basically is not his primary source of income. Like they take a 50% cut.
Yeah,
which is insane. But he says it's okay because it's free.
But he probably uses affiliate codes for stuff he promotes.
Yeah, he gets affiliate codes. They have a website, but the website only has
sponsorships, merch.
That's specific to YouTube, I think. And I think as a musician, there's a whole bunch of things that you can consider besides maybe so I think there's a difference between, and this is true of a lot of things, like working on the clock. So for example, us editing things, we're paid either by the hour or for the project.
Or for the project, yeah.
And things that can just be put online that are self-sufficient and generate its own income. So for a musician, that might be putting a beat online and then selling it. So then people who need it for their YouTube channel come by and be like, oh, can I purchase this beat for my video? Or
licensing it to another artist and then having the artist pay you.
And so there's so many different ways a musician can go about generating this kind of income, and it's really just a matter of creativity. For you, you're doing this podcast, and I'm not sure whether you've monetized it or not.
No.
Is there the possibility of doing that? Is Spotify?
It's kind of like Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube, where you got to reach a certain amount
you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can be fully monetized.
Plus 10,000 hours of watch time.
Yeah.
Then you per year before you can start monetizing.
Right.
And so I think my channel is immediately ineligible for things because I think in the first season of the podcast, I just wanted to include some music, and the guy was like, it wasn't getting approved for anything. He goes, oh yeah, because I had to email them and say, yeah, right, okay, we're just going to disable monetization full stop so that you can have music. I was like,
cool. So did you use music that you didn't properly license?
Yeah,
that's another big thing.
That's another big thing. I say, it's a music, and you have to explain it, this is an educational podcast, and okay, cool, considering all the above, and what are your snippets? 10 seconds. And he goes, okay, well, that's different, but I can't monetize now because
because you've done that.
Because I'm taking it from the... So the only way I can monetize now is by getting a sponsor.
Yeah. Just whack sick
And
ad.
speaking of sponsor, this episode is brought to you by...
Please give us money.
Sponsor us, someone. So that's the thing. It's just there's so many ways of putting yourself out there as a musician. And for example, you can create your own Instagram page. Pani was saying that you've created your own website.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm also looking into doing, but I don't know how I would want to do that. Whether it's like a just like a promo, like a website where you just promote yourself, or whether you want to have like
a website that people interact with and
exactly.
and is a part of your like work.
So something like GitHub almost, where you like upload your code to GitHub and people can
interact with it,
download it, and
I think for me, my website was just meant to be a place where like, because got my fingers in like lots of different pies. I've got like photography, videography. I'm a teacher, plus the orchestra. I was like, well, if people just type in my name, it's just going to be just like a cluster.
What's going to come up? It's
just going to be a cluster.
It's a mess.
It's an absolute mess. So I was like, well, if I make a website where everything's there, but everything links out to the different places, so it's a central hub. It's not really that interactive. The only interactive thing is on the landing page. It auto updates the most recent podcast, which is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's one of those. It's a business card.
It's a business card. Yeah,
exactly, an online business card that people go to.
Yeah, and you can pay for it I think you pay like $80 for it to be like one of the first results. So do you know what I did? I just Googled my name
and figured that
for like 10 times a day for a whole month, and it worked. And I could go like Google search result 15, click my website, and I did that 10 times a day for a whole month. And then what do you know? Slowly, you type in my name, it's now number 2, because the YouTube channel is like taking over. So
sick.
So if you ever make a website, don't pay for that. Just know, and just get friends to it. Say, hey, can you just like
Google me?
I mean, I
go to my website.
I stumbled upon a course for like online blog writing, and that's one of the biggest things is like, how do you title a blog in a way that like when someone searches for example, like, or maybe like you have kids and you're looking for baby prams or something, like how do you title your blog so then it becomes the first search result?
Yeah, I was doing some like HTML and CSS stuff the other day, just like sort of working out a structure for a website, and there is like a whole section where you can do keywords.
Yeah, keyword searching.
And you're just adding
keyword. How you target.
Yeah, how you target what your website is going to be targeted by your given search engine, which is always the Googs, but
So like, what have you guys got? So you're building your Instagram where you've got like your own beats that you showed me before. Have you seen it?
Is it like what you would do when you do that beta day thing for?
No, this is I've just created a small Instagram page that I haven't really been active on. I maybe did it 3 or 4 months ago, and then just like samples of my beats plus like a
nice.
This Max MSP thing that I built.
It's just Snake.
It's just Snake. So yeah, it's like it's an Ableton plugin that basically lets you play Snake now.
Sick.
And yeah, it's just an interesting thing to dive into. I feel like the entire hashtag game, how you like do hashtags to try and get other people that you would not normally get to view your thing.
How do you get on like the home page for people?
Exactly, the explore page where people can just like if they type like hashtag music, like obviously there's going to be millions and millions of results.
Yeah.
But like maybe people are looking for specific ones maybe.
And that's what Hannah Tan, she's in charge of the socials for Modest Orchestra.
Yeah.
And she has like 4 accounts she runs on Instagram, and it's amazing. But you look at her hashtags and they're very specific, but like they're specific to the area. And so like musicians Sydney or musicians like Glebe, for example.
Yeah.
And you get more hits rather than just say musicians.
Because it's so general.
It's so general. And
it's global.
It's global, right? So I think hashtags like got to be like local to your area in a way, and like local to your field.
And that's like for me, it's such a foreign thing because I never go on Instagram and search up like a hashtag.
Just go to V2R or go to Hannah's page and just look at them. And like what she does, she has like I think like on her notes app, just like a whole bunch of hashtags she's created, and just
copy them over.
Just copy
make
them
some new ones for different kinds of posts.
Into the first comment though, you don't do it as like the description because then it just clutters it up.
Yeah.
You do it as a comment, and then that makes it look clean, but then also like it triggers it, which is cool.
Yeah, so there's just this entire world of marketing that as a musician you're like, right.
Media hacks, and I think that's like kind of the point of all this stuff, right? Like that's what we're saying is that it's you. And that's the thing that nobody teaches you is it's like we all know how to do the things that we do fairly well, I'd like to think, but like we don't know how to tell people that.
Yeah.
We don't know how to like be like, hey, look at me, give me a job. Every job that I've ever gotten, like bar a few, have been like through someone that I know.
Yeah, word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth. Yeah. It's all recommendations. It's all, which is great, and I love that. And it's good because then you do the job for that person, and that person gets you another job, and then so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But there's also only that's only get you so far.
Right, and that's also another thing that we were going to talk about is whether like the end goal of having your own kind of thing is that so that you can get jobs elsewhere, or is that like self-sufficient in itself? And that's something that I like. Ideally, one day I'd like to be able to say that like I can do my own thing and not have to like rely on like someone recommending me a job or
yeah.
Like you just got the name.
Do you mean like, I mean, to get into the weeds of it, like working, because it's a bit, I find that line hard to draw, and it's an interesting thing, like working for yourself or working for someone else. If you're just doing contract work, at the end of the day, you're still working for yourself, because it's like, if I'm writing music, but I'm writing music for like a show, you're kind of working for someone else, but you're also kind of working for yourself because it is still your music.
Right.
Like,
but I think...
But like there's then the difference of like, I just wrote a bunch of music and I got paid for it.
Yeah. And people are coming to me just buy it and for licensing. He's like, oh yeah, I want to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like, in the end, you're still relying on that contract. Like if you don't get that contract, you don't get paid.
No.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be nice, and I say that knowing that like I really want to work towards it, to be able to be like, okay, I can put my own thing out there and that can generate, like that feeds me.
Well, there's I watched this awesome, I think it was yesterday actually, this awesome video. You guys know Jack Conte, who's the founder of Patreon. So he has a YouTube channel. He put out a video about pretty much exactly what we're talking about, which is the future of online creators, like, and how they make money and like how that'll cycle back. And he's just sort of like essentially claims he's like, we're in the second renaissance, blah blah blah, etc. In that, because like Patreon a year ago was valued at 2 billion, this year I think its valuation's gone up to 6 billion.
Whoa.
So because everyone's been locked down and has been making a lot of stuff at home, and everyone's got a Patreon, the net worth of it's gone up so much. But also other online media platforms have all started their own versions of like something that's copying Patreon. So Facebook has Facebook membership now, where you can get like, you can pay to subscribe to someone's page. You can super follow someone on Twitter, which is a new thing that Twitter announced 3 days ago.
Whoa.
So you can pay to
follow exclusive
content on Twitter. You've got YouTube Premium, and you've also got YouTube memberships.
Yeah,
so those are both two different things. Like every service now has this thing where you can get like exclusive content direct from artists by paying them a fee.
Yes,
and I think that demands interaction on the part of the audience, and like thinking of it in an audience perspective, like how often do you think you'd use a service like YouTube membership or YouTube?
I mean, I definitely pay a few people on Patreon because I like Patreon. But that's like people that like they're giving me something that then I'm going to use as a tool. Like it's not necessarily. I initially used it as like a content thing. Like I would get.
You just support them a lot.
I'd just be like, I really like what this person's doing. Like I just want more content.
Yeah.
But then it got to the point where I was like, I'm just consuming so much content that I don't need. I don't need that. But like then, so for example, our friend Marty, this guy, he makes like really good sort of samples and synth patches and effects and things and stuff like that. And he had a Patreon for a while where if you were subscribed to it, you got all of his samples, all of his patches, all of his effects, like essentially for free, but it was like $15 a month or whatever. And you just had and you continued access, and he updates it every month.
Right.
And I think there was like me and like 6 other people who were doing it, and he just called it. He was just like, bro, I'll just send you the link when I come up with something new. Like, thank you so much for giving me money. It's not taking off the way that he sort of anticipated. But the thing is as well is like Marty's really active in like all the online music communities, but he's not like very good at selling himself.
No, that's something we don't learn about. Like,
No, and so that's why I think it wasn't very. I was like, dude, this is a great idea, and you are selling a great product. It's just that nobody knows who this guy is, and like he just posts up his samples sometimes for free on like various music blogs, and people go cool, and he edits a couple of like things online, but it's like.
It's a type of interaction that like really demands a lot of the audience to actively be like, yeah, I want to subscribe to this.
Yeah.
Because you can promote yourself and give out free content as much as you like, but if you don't convert those, and that's something that I struggle with, because I know like, for example, even with the news websites that I like, The Guardian, I always see something at the end of the Guardian website being like, yeah, can you like you've read 800 or so articles this year, can you afford to like. And
give us $1.
You're right, and I always feel so guilty because I'm like, I really, it takes. You need to be active.
Yeah,
just to do that.
Otherwise, it's like you have that weird like advertising imbalance, and that's where like podcasting, just to get a bit meta on it, is a bit of a weird medium, because it's like most people make money from podcasting, not through the actual listening of the podcast.
No. Yeah.
Like podcasts are shit at making money.
Yeah, they're so bad.
So bad. You just make money because you're a person.
Yeah.
And because you get sponsorship,
sponsors and like,
whatever,
they've got a podcast, that's cool.
And then like maybe you tack an ad at the beginning, a middle, and the end.
I think
and even then those
nothing.
ads pay nothing. Yeah.
Compared to YouTube, it's like YouTube actually has pretty good money that you get from it. Podcasts, I don't think you can even make money just from listeners or like active audience like you can with Facebook.
Not on
and I think it's because there's no ads.
Yeah.
Because on YouTube you get the AdSense, like that's how they get paid. Like people watch ads. You can't put them at the start of a podcast.
And it's very marginal as well.
Yeah.
Like,
you can make like, well, I think it's that thing where like you can make, so like Joe Rogan, good example, Spotify paid to have him on their service. So like that's like exclusively, which is like that's how he's making money, right? It's stuff like that. Whereas like, and obviously they've offered him way more than the YouTube whatever he was making for that. But then you've also got like Audible makes like original podcasts like to go alongside like audiobooks, and those are exclusive content, so you have to be an Audible subscriber to listen to those. So I imagine that those people that are making those podcasts would be making a little bit more money, but not like
a lot
more money.
It's interesting. Do you guys know Gary Vee? Yeah. So his big thing is that like make as much content as possible and make free content, but don't make people pay for your content. Make them pay for your time. So he like that was a big thing. When he was starting up, he's like always offer free content like as a musician, but like if you want a one-on-one Skype call with me or something, or like where I review your work, like you submit something to me, you want my opinion on you personally, then. So his perspective is like build your following, do heaps of content, and if people want your opinion or your time, then you charge. And so that's an interesting way to make money.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, there's a couple of people I follow like that, where you're like, you sort of look at their YouTube channel, you're like, how do you make any money? And then they're like, in the description, it's like, hit me up for a one-on-one, lesson or whatever. And I'm like, you're charging like $100 an hour for that. And you teach like 30 people, sick. Essentially, you are just you're an instrumental tutor who also has a YouTube channel.
Right. And have access to 1 million people, and like 1 million people, like you get, if 1% of them, you want 1 million people want to grab your time, well then that's like a lot of money.
Right. And I think
it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, you have to be really creative, I think, and that's the crux of it, is like, how do you want to like interact with an online audience and build your audience, and then how do you also want to offer them something else that can also be of worth to them, where they're willing to pay money for it.
Yeah. Like my YouTube channel at the moment, I just do covers on it for fun. Like I did the Wellerman, the sea shanty. That's got like 1.5k views on it, just randomly. And people that comment on it, where can I find the music? So I just say, here's a link to my website.
Oh, like the sheet music?
Yeah. No, here's a link to my website. Email me and I'll give you my music. And I've got a couple of emails. I'm like, I was responding to one earlier, just like, here's the music, bam. And I don't care about the music, but like it gets them to the website.
You gotta license that stuff, man.
Yeah, true. I
No, don't.
I mean, to be fair, where did I get it for?
Yeah.
Questionable music decisions.
That's No, you don't want to. I will not send you this Sibelius file because it is atrocious.
yeah. It's like, oh, but do you remember my Sibelius things from? Remember the Pokemon one, where
bro, Pani? Do you remember doing these? Pani used to just do convert from MIDI. He'd like find the MIDI online for some like, I don't know, Pokemon theme song, whatever, and would just like, you can. There's a thing in Sibelius where you can go convert from MIDI to like score, which is like super useful.
It's gotten better.
It's gotten better. Except that like, if MIDI data is like kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
And so like everything would be like slightly off the beat. And or would just be hemi-demi semiquavers with like lots of rests in between. And you'd be like, is that meant to be a long note or is that like...
Yeah. Andrew Jeffrey's tuba part was a percussion part.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and because particularly not only is it MIDI data, but it's MIDI data from like a Nintendo game, which is only like an 8-bit.
And then it had 3 channels.
And it only has 3 channels.
Yeah.
It has melody, bass, and percussion.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's we're doing video game music actually with Year 7. They're loving it. It's pretty hilarious.
Have you looked? Do you know 8-bit music theory?
Yeah. How good is that channel?
Yeah, he's great.
I've put on the just basically saw what he's taught and then teach it back to the kids. But yeah, like the MIDI data, and then we used to play it. I was like, why can't you play it? It's like this insane chromatic thing.
Why can't you play it?
Exactly. It's like impossible.
Yeah. No, Penny, this is played by a machine, not by a human.
And that's another interesting thing, actually. Like selling MIDI pack chords.
Oh, I don't get that.
MIDI pack chords.
Yeah. So like lots of beat make and this is like a weird like online beat maker producer thing, where they'll be like, hey, download my sample pack, like, and it's like sick drums or whatever, cool.
Or just like A minor chords.
Download my MIDI chords, and it's like it'll be 4 or 5, or 3 or 4 chords or 2 chords, and it'll be like just.
I don't want to rip into it, but like basic.
No,
I think I've seen something like that. Like I popped up on Instagram.
Not
like
even interesting voicing. Not even interesting. Like it's just like
root position.
It's just like, here's my chord, here's another chord, and people are like sick, and then they can just drag and drop that into their DAW of choice, and then just stick on a synth, and then they're.
Oh wait, so it's not even like because I think that's the one where it's like press one note and it turns into a chord, and it just
you do also have. There are also plugins that do that. But it's like. I get it because it's like it's meant to make music making easier, but it's also kind of turning it into like Lego block building. Like build your music.
I appreciate it because it like lets anybody, like it democratizes the entire DAW. Like that's basically the idea of the DAW, is to let anybody like get into it.
It definitely democratizes, but also capitalizes in the fact that people are making money off selling an A minor chord.
Right.
Which is kind of, I don't know. I agree. I think it's great, but also weird.
Yeah, as a musician that has like background in music theory, they're like,
send me your sick. Like, I want a sick MIDI thing. Like, I'd pay for like some really nice, cool contrapuntal. Like,
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that actually sounds cool.
Something that sounds cool.
I did a show once 4 years ago. It was like a cabaret, but not quite. It was weird. And the guy had one of those sample packs, but the way it worked is that he would press like an A and he'd go bump, bump, da 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 da. So he made this this whole show based around that. And he's like, oh yeah, can you arrange them? Because he didn't know how to write music. He was good. He was really good, like jazz. No, it wasn't jazz. He was just a good pianist, but he just didn't have the time or the energy to write it out. So I was like, oh yeah, send me the MIDI data. So me not realizing that he just pressed one note. We got up to this one bit, we're all playing the pie, it was pretty good, but then everyone just played unison A's, because he just triggered like a sample, and it was just like, what is going on? And that's what I realized. Because he just
unison A. Yeah, it's just like, there's this really big power chord coming up,
and it was in the wrong key as well.
To the dun. Yeah. Wasn't in the key of the note that was triggering.
So the piece was like in like I think it was like in it was like an F sharp or something, and you just hear this like A natural just like cut through. You're like,
good, very good.
And we just all stop and go, what's wrong? And that's when I learned,
these things
keyboard,
exist.
Keyboard also trigger.
I mean, it's just like it almost feels like a bit of a like. I don't want to say anybody can like sell those sample packs because obviously you kind of have to build your own following first before you get to that. And I see YouTube videos because my YouTube is either music production or like food, which is what I watch on YouTube. The ads for it are these guys that like either have like a plugin that's like, oh, fix your entire thing with this plugin.
Make some sick harmonies.
Oh, there's one that's like...
Or like, yeah, like drag and drop these.
Or the mastering ones.
The mastering ones.
The mastering ones. Like, made your music sound professional.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like there's just like 10 tracks compared to one. Like, yeah,
drop it into a website and then just like, fingers crossed.
And part of it is like your integrity as like I don't want to say integrity in like a derogatory sense.
You're not
like
trying to be condescending.
Exactly, implying that these guys don't have because they're doing their part in like making music what it is. But like, do I want to be doing that? And like, is that who I am?
Yeah, and it's, I guess,
as like an artist.
And do we need more stuff? Like,
that's a good.
I mean, I love stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love stuff. But do we need more of this? Like, what they're doing is they're making more stuff that's going to go out there that people have to spend money on that are going to become like, sort of obsolescent eventually. And are these like weird tools that are like kind of like like you're right, democratizing music, an intermediary kind of thing. But also like from that, then you're getting a bunch of people making stuff with this. And it's like, I'm all for people making stuff, but if it's all made using the same sets of MIDI packs, the same mastering thing, the same whatever, the same plugins.
I mean,
like it's going to be different because everybody's
right?
different and whatever.
Right.
But it's like it does become very homogenous. It's very like
that's basically where you get your like SoundCloud beat maker or
SoundCloud
SoundCloud rapper. Right?
That's where that genre of music comes from.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's.
But in the same way that like a lot of hip hop comes from, and a lot of dance music comes from like the 808 and the 909 as like instruments, and the fact that Roland just happened to make these two like relatively crap like drum machines, but had like really specific sounds and were used in the way that they weren't intended to be used, and then made these sick like sort of.
And now they're in that 808 drums is everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen that guy that the Brett Domino trio? The guy's like how to make a top pop song. He's like in these like 808 drums, like it's in every single song. You're like, yeah, it actually wasn't what is.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like a matter of creativity, right? Like I mean, in like a pile of or a sea of so many kind of like a variety of different genres of music, there's always and of different levels of artists, you'll find someone that like.
So when you made your beat, like you made that from scratch, right?
A lot of it was from scratch.
It's really interesting.
So part of it comes down to like your workflow. Like my workflow is like cracking a piano, play some chords, and then layer.
Yeah, I saw this YouTuber this morning. I was just watching just random stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, so I learned how to make a beat." And like you just saw him, he just used GarageBand. He's, "I'm so proud of this. Like it's really good." And there was like the auto drum machine. He put that in, and then he put like just random like chords, descending thing, and then just put like auto chords. And I was like, "It's like, yeah, how cool is it?" I'm like, "It's what you're saying before. It's just you just blocked it in."
Yeah, so it was like, I think like that sort of stuff serves its
purpose. Yeah. But
I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's good for you.
It comes back to that like condescending integrity thing, and then we're just like, no man, do whatever you want, but also like, I don't know. You like, and the thing is that at the end of the day, like, most of this stuff doesn't go on to see the light of day. Like, most of it just ends up as like in a folder on someone's hard drive. Like it does, it's not hurting anyone. It doesn't. It's okay.
Yeah, because you were saying like how much stuff have you created that just exists on your computer? Like,
exactly right.
Yeah,
like,
bro. I don't think I've ever released. I have released and then taken back music, but I've never put anything online and left it there. But I've got hundreds of songs on my computer.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like I'm in the position where like I just wanted like, well, no, because I had like I have hundreds of Sibelius arrangements that I made, so many of them. And like only like in the last, I think it was COVID actually, because I got bored and I just went a bit insane. I was like, there was no performing, right? I was like, well, I'm going to start performing my arrangements, and that was kind of like the big thing for me, and that's when I really got obsessively into this and like podcasting. And then like on my Panesthetic Instagram, I was posting every day and it was really weird to see the statistics. So like it actually went up.
Yeah.
Because of this algorithm where if you post
more regularly, people will see your stuff more regularly.
Or like Instagram actually promotes it because like they see an active creator.
Yeah,
bro.
And like going back to that, it's just like a perfectionist thing. Like, do I want to release things that I feel very lukewarm about, or do I want to be the very best that I can? And I feel like that's part of me, like the mental block for me to overcome is being like, yep, this is good enough.
It's such a thing for a musician to have though, because like that's what we
all grew up like in like the classical music world. Like you aim for the very best, right?
Perfection. You're in a practice room for 10 hours at a time practicing one phrase over and over and over
exactly,
and over,
right.
over again.
And so
it kind of bleeds into this kind of context.
Yeah, right. And it's just like, how do I overcome that and like be happy with where I'm at and be okay with showing the rest of the world that. And that's something that I maybe still haven't quite overcome yet, because as you can see, maybe I just haven't released a lot of things.
Yeah,
it is that like it's almost a hindrance, but it's not like I don't know. I think that's like, remember I like way back when we were at uni and we did that like Jeff and I were like, New Year's resolution, we're doing a beta. Was it a beta week
or something like that? Yeah.
I think I got to week 3 and I gave up. Jeff did it for ages.
I did it for maybe like 20 weeks or almost
half
a year.
That's half a year.
So this is like half a year of me like starting to learn Ableton.
And it was like what was the rule? It just had to be 1 minute.
Yeah.
And it's like sick, and you have to post it up on SoundCloud.
Oh, and you did.
And I mean, I've taken down most of them. There's like maybe 2 or 3 that's left up there. That I'm
right.
like, oh, well, this is
a
cool reminder of where I was at one time.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Like it's the reminder of where you were at. Like my YouTube, I look at my first arrangements, I'm like, oh, these are bad. But they're like good bad.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing.
It's like a nostalgic bad. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think part of that was just like being inspired by. We were watching Casey Neistat a lot, and he was like every single day
he was making a video every day.
Right,
like,
and it was just like
we can do that.
Yeah.
Except we don't make videos, we make music, but we can make music.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were like, make a beat every day, and it was like,
But it was every week, right? And like we just had to put up a 1 minute track that was like kind of mixed and kind of mastered.
Okay, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that again.
I'll join in.
It's like, I mean, it's like a collective thing. Like you kind of,
the more people that do it,
if you have a bit of accountability.
That's the word.
And that's the thing. Is like when you're only accountable for yourself, and you can be like, well, no, this isn't good enough. Like, then you end up just not putting out anything.
Well, yeah, I haven't put anything out for 2 months now. I'm like, I might do something. I know when you guys leave, I might just record Eleanor Rigby classic song. Oh, I'm so into the Beatles at the moment. It's like for just some bizarre reason. They're good, you know. I don't even heard of them, but like
got around to it.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy because like my partner, she has her own YouTube channel, and recently
she's fairly big though as well, right? It's relative.
Relatively, I mean, like it just happens that
she doesn't have 1 million subscribers, but it's like.
But like for
What
and
does she do on it?
So she's a Polish YouTuber basically.
Polish YouTuber.
Yeah, because she's from Poland.
Okay.
I'll tell you the backstory later.
Right, okay.
I was there. Anyway.
Oh, okay, cool.
But she has, so she popped off in maybe like 2016 when she was traveling in the US, and she posted a video of her in the US, and all of a sudden her video had like 150,000 views, and she gained like maybe 20k subscribers from that.
Whoa.
And now recently she's like just posted maybe like 10-minute long videos of her talking about life in Australia, because obviously now she's in Australia.
Yeah.
And like I admire her ability to hold herself accountable. Every week she's like, okay, on maybe like Saturday afternoon, I'm going to record 3 videos. It's just her talking in front of a camera. She records 3 videos and she sends it off to her editor, who edits it. And it's like being able to hold yourself accountable and being like, okay. And I think part of it is like building a routine. And I think that's kind of what we had when we were like 1 beat a week. Like we're going to do this. And regardless of whether I'm like personally happy with the end product, like I'm going to push it out and after that week, I'm not worrying about it anymore. And yeah, it's strange, partially because I've noticed that maybe I was very reliant on maybe university as like a, how would I say?
Guiding structure.
Right, like a structure that was like, I worked within a predefined structure. Like I had a due date for this
You had
project.
deadlines.
You had actual deadlines.
Yeah, it's like, this is in or you fail.
Right.
And it doesn't, and you're like, okay, I don't care how good it is because it's
It
done.
has to be done by this date. Right. And now that I'm like obviously graduated and 2 years into my professional career, I'm like, well, I don't have that kind of structure unless I set it for myself.
Yeah.
And
also like the way the professional world works is a little bit different as well. Like people come in and you go, like I've had this happen so many times and I hate it. But they're like, hey, this is the project, blah, blah, blah. Here's the handover. You've got 2 weeks. Sick. Edit. Happy.
Yep.
Send off. Before the due date as well. Nothing. Radio silence. Oh, cool. They must be happy with it. A week after the due date. Can you change X, Y, and Z? And you go, okay, yeah, cool. I'm already on to the next thing. Like I don't really have time to go, yeah, I'll change it. And then it becomes this like weird back and forth. And then you're just like back and forthing on like nothing. And you're just like, cool, man. Like, there's like, I understand that this is, and that's when it's that thing where you're working for someone else and you're like, this isn't my project. It's not my call to call when this is done.
But, right.
No, yeah.
But also this is done. Like, I think my section, and that's, like you don't want to be like arrogant and go like, I'm done. This is my bit. I'm done. You want to try and listen, and they're the person you're working with, and so that's fine. But I think there's something to be said for like, there's a lot of things where I've done that where it's been back and forth until the point at which then the person goes, actually, I'm not happy with it
at all. Yeah.
At all. We're not going to do anything with it. And you go, cool. We've just spent all this time for this thing not to see the light of day. And like that. And then coming back to the initial conversation of like, building our websites, whatever. Like that's my struggle at the moment. Is I go, I've got so many things that are done or are really polished and I think should be published but haven't been published anywhere else, and because they're not wholly my things, I'm not allowed to publish them.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, sick, hire me to work on your film. I've worked on these 5 things and these 27 other things that I can't show you.
I'm going to show you a question mark and a smiley face.
Exactly.
Imagine it's really good.
Like it's like I've got a couple of things for specific jobs. What I'll do is I've got them either on private YouTube links or in private drives that are password protected and stuff like that. And I send it to them and I say, please don't
download
it. Please don't download it. Please don't tell it.
Yeah.
Please don't. Yeah, you give them a time limit. Please don't tell anyone about this, because it's not my project. But I did work on it.
Right, exactly.
And they go, cool. And it's like, and that's great. And it's like, and I've had people that I've sent those links to go like, why is this not public?
You're like, what?
Because they're like, that was great. And I'm like, I don't know, man. You're going to have to talk to the director because it's not my project. Like, and so that's like a hard sort of like,
I mean, because they've gone through that same process, right? They're like, well, this isn't up to my scratch.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's that, I don't know, that impetus, that want to put out, and that
and trying to balance that
and trying not to be, I think, like as creative people, you try not to be defined too much by what you do. And like I think like that's the thing I think for directors, like a lot of the stuff that they do, particularly if they've also written it, they're like, this is me in a piece of work, and it's like, yeah, it is, but also like 35 other people worked on this, like, and all of them want this to be like a portfolio piece, particularly like in early days when I was working on student films, and I'm still doing a couple of student films every now and then. And it's like, and I've got some guys I've been working with recently that are great. They're like, I go shoot day. I'm like, when are we publishing it? 6 weeks. I'm like, sick, and it's published 6 weeks. I'm like, awesome.
So they've
locked themselves in. We got we actually did a film in Polish. Jeff, this is weird. I should send it to you.
Okay.
It's actually up online. and it's screened at the Moscow Shorts Film Festival.
Wow.
Which
Okay.
is like one of those hilarious things because like one of them that his grandma's Polish and she was like the lead in it.
Mhm.
And we did this whole like it's only like 2.5 minutes. And we shot this whole thing and I was like doing the dialogue at it and I was like, does this even really matter? Like no one's gonna understand what's happening. I don't understand
Of
what's
course,
happening.
yeah.
I don't speak Polish. And the guys were like, no, it'll be good. We're going to enter it in some foreign film festivals. I was like, so you're not going to screen it here? And they're like, oh, we'll do like a little screening here, but like,
where's the interest here?
yeah, where's the interest? I mean, put
Yeah.
some subtitles on it, it's fine. But is that classic, like, we sent it to this thing and then they were like, they had to put Russian subtitles over it. They were like, this has been selected, like, highly
awesome.
commended for this thing.
Putting subtitles is actually such a pain. James Hubberstone, he asked me, he did like this project like 3 years ago and he was like, hey man, I'll chuck you $100
If you put subtitles on
yeah,
this.
and I was like, cool. So actually, turns out Final Cut at the time didn't support like the type of subtitles that you can like turn off and on. Not capture, what's it called? Like the TV ones, like yeah. It's actually really hard to do.
Oh,
it takes forever. And he was like, how many hours? I got sunk this many hours. He goes, all right, I'm just gonna double it. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, well, because it's
Had to learn Adobe because Adobe Premiere was the only one that actually supported it.
Yeah, not burnt in.
Non-burnt in. That's what it was. Yeah. Because you got to look at the script and like it was like an hour. It was an hour show. It was 1 full hour.
Oh, dude, that would have taken you like at least 20 hours.
Yeah, it took forever, and I was just sitting there with the script, and I'm like, when you lose your place, you lose your place.
You gotta go back, do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, you learned something out of that, right?
Yeah, I can add
It's a skill.
It's a skill. Yeah,
Put that in your website.
yeah, I can do subtitles.
Yeah.
But like, okay, that's an interesting point. How many times have you accepted a gig when like you're like,
I don't really know what I'm doing.
but I know I can learn it?
A lot of this, like, it depends on the degree of the gig, right? Like, there's definitely been times when people have asked me to do something and it's like fairly high stakes and they're offering a lot of money and I go, I don't know how to do that, but I know someone that knows how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd be happy to get them to do it and I'll assist, you know? But then, yeah, a lot of the times, like, I did a gig for North Sydney or Northern Beaches Wind Symphony or, I don't know, some band that had a concerto competition.
Right.
And they, like, the winner, like, and it was during COVID, so, like, the winner of the concerto competition normally gets to perform their thing twice.
Yep.
But because we couldn't have any live music, they got to record it.
Cool.
And so
you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, a dude I went to uni with was like filming it, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do this? Like, can you do the sound? Like, do the music for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." But it was like we recorded in this like church hall in Pimble, or I don't know where it was. It's far away for me. And like it was one of those things. Like I arrived on the day, and I was like, "Oh no, this is not a controlled environment. We're on a highway. It is the boomiest church ever. I don't have music stands that could go high enough. I'd hired mics, so I wasn't gonna like throw them over like the beams inside the church because that would have been the ideal thing. But they didn't have a ladder, and so I was like, I could throw a cable over and then like hook a mic, but I didn't have long enough mic cables, and it was just like, I was just like, oh, I feel so bad because I thought it was just going to be like a rock up, plug in, record, go home, mix, done. But it was like a real hassle. We ended up getting like a pretty good product. Yeah. Fairly happy with it. We ended up the video. It was so mad because the flute player for the concerto, she was like really happy with the first and second movement from the first take, and then wanted the third movement from the third take.
I hate when you do that.
And so I could because there's a nice pause, so I could I quite easily splice those two together. But we didn't have like multicam. We did multicam, so it was like 6 cameras or something.
Yeah.
4 cameras, and I'd done a clap at the beginning and like in front of all the cameras just as like a posterity thing. But then it was like this weird he had to sync both of them and then do the cut point because like he didn't have sunk because it's two different sets of video.
Okay.
So it's like he had to sync both takes instead of just syncing one take.
Yeah,
to sync both takes and then bring them in and then bring in 4 lots of cameras.
That's annoying. Yeah.
And it was just like,
see,
sorry, dude.
at school, good old Grando, he was like, oh yeah, we're gonna splice the entire. Remember for Jupiter, there was like 4 cut points, and like, but he was smart. He's like, okay. He was like, I had to plan it with him. He came into my desk and he's like, Pani, how are we gonna do this? I'm like, well, only on the Fermata pauses, and like he would just like pause. Yeah, cool. That's the end of take. End of Jupiter. Good. All right. Do.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a good way.
And then
of
like,
doing it.
right, let's start the next section, section B, and then like a couple of bars leading into it. Everyone holding the pause, and then boom. And then what did we do? Just
really smooth.
Camera.
Yeah.
It was very smooth actually, but we clapped every single time, and so that was easy to sync. But like that situation was like, it's like, well, it's not pre-planned.
Well, it was just the two of us, and like they didn't really. The band just like wanted to just show up and play, and it's like that's fine. But yeah, it was like chaos. But yeah, that's probably like one of the few times where I've been like, man, I wish I had a second person here, or I wish this had been more planned or organized. Yeah. And then they hit me up, they're like, oh, we're gonna do this other thing, and I was like, yeah, look, I'll totally do it, but like I'm gonna need more like
more notice,
more information, more notice before, because it was kind of just. And it was the same even for the camera guy. He was also like, I got 4 cameras, and we just showed up. He was like, shit, where am I going to put them? Because it's a church hall, so it's just flat. So we had like one like hanging off like a rafter, like was kind of sideways, and like there was like a little balcony at the back, so he like stuck it in the balcony through the curtains, like
no way.
But it was very hard to, most people, particularly in those recording climates, like people don't, unless you have like a technical liaison for the group, they don't think about that.
Yeah, that's like that comes down to like the stakes involved as well, right? Like
high stakes, low stakes.
Yeah, well, versus like working for SSO or
the
Opera House or Angel Place or whatever. Like they're very organized in terms of that sort of stuff.
And so I think with maybe more low stakes things where they're like very last minute, like, yeah, we want to do a recording, like you can expect that level of like planning. And so I feel like for the jobs that I've kind of accepted where I'm like, oh, do I know if I can actually do this in the first place? I rock up and I'm like, actually, yeah. So one of the ones, it was actually the internship that I did in uni. The lady that I did the internship for, she wanted like a pop-up stand in Ashfield with like very retro things, and I'd never ever worked with like dual wire speakers before.
Yeah.
And so she was like, yeah, I purchased these like secondhand retro speakers from the 80s for like $60.
I've purchased these obsolete technology that now you have to wire in.
Can you figure out how to do it? And so I was like,
did you have to buy an amp?
So I was like searching up on Google, being like, well, how do I do this? Like obviously I can't plug it into like an XLR mixer.
Yeah, you can't just go.
And so we had to buy like another like $50
around the
around the inside the XLR cable.
I reckon that might
very checky. Then just take it. I think you could. No, you'd have to buy. Like it's actually the same cable that's inside there.
Exactly. You'd have to splice it.
You just have to cut that off and then
which is something that I actually want to get into, but that's like a different conversation.
That's a.
But because it was in my mind maybe more low stakes than like another professional gig, like I was more than happy to do the research and to be like, yeah, okay, this is what we need now. Can you fit that in your budget? And she was like, yeah, I can buy an amplifier and then like whatever else we need. And so it ended up working perfectly fine. We had like a really nice pop-up stage for her gig, for the festival in Ashfield. But yeah, like I don't think I've really come across a situation where I felt completely out of my depth.
No, I don't think you ever want to feel that.
And exactly.
It's more like, I think it's more. There's definitely been situations I've been offered where I'm like, no. And then there's like situations like this gig where you show up and you're like, oh, this isn't at all what was explained to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Your expectations are very different. It's like...
Yeah, when a client doesn't communicate. I think I did one where if it was just me, I was actually out of my depth when I did this thing. I was like, cool. And I brought in Connor. And if Connor wasn't there, I'd be like royally stuffed.
Yeah.
I've been at gigs where like I felt personally out of my depth. But I was like, okay, there's like people there who would just basically make sure it doesn't sink. So I'm learning when to say no. I've actually said no to like a few things this year. I'm very proud of myself.
Good.
It's a weird skill to have, which is I like being the yes man, But sometimes being the no man.
Oh, dude, I'm the same. I'm like, yes, and then I look at my calendar and go, no. I'm not sleeping this year.
It needs that. Yeah.
No, I think the very first time I did like an on-set film shoot where they needed me as a boom, I think it was an afters master's project. And they were like, yeah, we just want volunteers to come in and help do, like, fill out some extra roles, like, for the sound.
Yeah.
And Miss Kell, so our high school teacher.
And you rocked up, yeah.
She invited me. She was like, yeah, my daughter is involved in this project. Can you like help her out for the sound? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And this was the first time I had done.
Yeah, sure, why not? I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right, this is the first time I had done anything related to film on set. Right. And so I rocked up and they had like
not a master's, like an afters master's project's pretty high stakes. Like they put a lot of money into that. I'm doing that project with John this year. And
so it was just like an H6 Zoom. Or not even an H6, it was like an H2 Zoom. And the DOP came up to me and was like, can we sync timecode? And I was like, what? And this was the first time I had ever worked with timecode. So I was like frantically trying to figure out on that H2 Zoom how to do timecode.
Whoa!
This is like bringing a freaking Hot Wheels car to a Formula One race.
and then the I think maybe it was the director of this project came up and was like, yeah, we've got like 3 lapel mics that we want to sync in, and I was like, well, this really only has two inputs, and I didn't bring any gear because I was under the impression that all the gear would be supplied, and. So I was freaking out like at 8 o'clock in the morning trying to like sort out the situation.
This is 8 a.m. Oh my gosh.
And luckily they brought in they hired a professional to come in. I'm not sure whether they paid this guy or not, but he brought in his own F8, which is similar to what we have right now recording on this thing. But Dexter has an F8, which has 8 inputs, and that was more than enough. And he took charge, which I'm eternally grateful for because I was just like totally out of my depth then.
Yeah. But that's, I think, I've definitely I've been you in that situation, and I've been the other guy. Right? Like, because I think a lot of the time, and maybe this is goes to something else, and Pani's got a pretty good grasp on it, and you're lucky because you're a musician and you're into recording and stuff. But like, people in film, and not to like generalize, but there's a lot of like, either have like a really good understanding of how sound works or none at all, and they just go, you sort that out, and you go, sick. But I've shown up to things and they're just like, you know, it's like, I'm like, sick, I need how many actors do we have on screen at once? We've got 5? Sick. I need 5 lapels, and I'm going to bring a boom, and I'm going to boom up, and maybe we'll do a second boom. And you're like, sick. And then you rock up and they're like, oh, I borrowed these lapels from my friend, and they're like the road goes, like the mini ones that are just like meant for like mobile, they plug into your phone.
You still got one of those.
They don't plug into they don't have like an XLR or a line out, and I'm like, oh my, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and there's no way that we're going to be able to get the. And I'm like, all right, sick, actors, everybody put a phone in your pocket.
Yeah.
And everyone puts a phone in their pocket, like put it in the.
Everyone clap.
No, and then literally, but then the problem is that they're all standing like 20 meters away. So I have to like get them. I'm like, everybody come in here, and then like everybody fuck off.
Yeah.
And then you know like.
You gotta work with what you've got.
And then you get like a bunch of files and are in a bunch of different formats. They're all at different bit rates. They're all different sample rates.
Everything's gotta go down to 44.
And you're just like,
oh no.
Because it's like somebody's got an iPhone, someone's got a Samsung, someone's no.
Yeah, you're working on the fly. You're trying to get everything ready, and you're being pressured by the director who's like, "We need to start now."
Yeah, and you're like, "Okay, cool," but also like. This is very poorly organized. Yeah. Like you gave old mate with the camera 2 weeks notice, and he's got this sick shoulder rig and a fucking, easy rig and like all this stuff, and like has hired like thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And I said, I gave you a really simple list of like, I need 5 lapels, and you just, a lapel costs $50 to hire for the day.
Yeah. It's interesting because
actually a pair of lapels costs $50. So
it's interesting how you say like a lot of they just don't understand, which is I think then that means they don't understand that audio actually is what makes a movie good or bad. It's something where you don't notice good audio, but you notice bad audio.
You kind of expect them to understand
of that.
Particularly
if you're a student filmmaker, and then you're like. you make a bunch of films and then it has rubbish audio, and then you're like, sick, we can't publish this because it sucks. I don't know.
Like, yeah, surely you'd have technical training that like involves understanding what it takes to.
But a lot of the times as well, like directors aren't, and this is where it comes that thing like where like there's a bit of like in filmmaking and it's like very top down. There's like department segregation, and it's like the departments are fighting each other, even though we're all working together to reach the same goal. But it's like, you know, like on big sets, like people get mad at each other, like the gaffers always get mad at someone else because they're like, why are you running over my cables? You know, like, and it's like, oh, who put these cables here? You know, like it's that thing of like, oh, we need to run those lights that are like 400 meters away. Yeah. And you, like, it's this whole like interaction. It's a big operation. And oftentimes, like, particularly on small things, like the people that have there's like 3 or 4 people that have like really good technical knowledge of their each individual department that are like the figurative department heads, and then you've got a director who's like maybe been a cameraman, maybe worked as a runner on set, maybe done whatever, but like maybe they haven't, maybe they're just like someone who's, maybe they're an actor, maybe they're a writer, maybe they're you know, and they're like, just make it work. It's like, you haven't facilitated this
at all.
And that's when you need, I think, like that's the best stuff I've worked on has had like a really good producer who's like the person who's like the translator for the director. They go like, what do you need? And I go, I need this. And they go, sick. How much money is that going to cost us? And I go, it's going to cost us this much money. And they go, sick. And then they go to the director, I need $300. The director goes, okay.
Yeah. And why? Because
just trust me.
Right, exactly. And you, like, it's hard to know which mode you need to be in, whether you just like, you're on the same wavelength as the person you're like the director or the producer, or whether you need to step up and be like, I need this specific thing, this specific brand, this specific model number with this. Yeah, you don't understand XLR.
And that's sort of like and it's that assumption thing where you're like, oh yeah, like I need this thing, and you know, it's like you've worked on films before, and they go, yeah. You go, cool, can you just give me this? And they go, yeah, sick. And then they get just like, this is, it's like, you know, that meme, it's like, Mum, can we have? We've got Nintendo at home, you know. And it's like Nintendo at home.
It's like,
right, exactly, yeah.
It's literally that. I shop and you're like, this is not what I asked for.
Completely, yeah. And so it's hard to know like what kind of negotiation you need to be doing when you're 100%. When you jump into this.
Well, and also, I mean, when they go like, this is very low budget, like we can't afford X, Y, Z, and you're like, cool.
And then you're looking at that shoulder rig, like $3,000 lens on like this guy. It's like,
well, and then like, it was so funny because like on that gig, then I ended up talking, like I was talking to the DOP heaps, and super nice guy. And this was like the first day. So then the next shoot, I hired a bunch of stuff myself because he was like, I was talking to him. He's like, no, I just hired this myself, and then I just billed them for it. I was like, sick. I was like, what if they didn't pay you back for it? He goes, I don't care. Like he's like that. Once they see the footage, they'll be happy. And I was like, okay, good.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's like maybe not the best way of going about it, but because he had like a pretty good relationship with the directors, he was like, look, they just haven't thought about it. Like
no, because then they're not experts in the field, which is interesting. Yeah, but as a director, you kind of need to know enough about all the fields to be the director to know that.
Yeah, well, to be able to converse at least marginally about it.
Yeah. Which is kind of why I like try and learn as much about audio.
That kind of relates back to what I was saying about low stakes and high stakes. Like you'd expect a professional producer to have that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you rock up to those, like Dexter's saying, like everything's prepared for you. Whereas like maybe with a student film, you don't expect that level, and you might end up in a situation where you're like working with all these audio files and you aren't matching because that was how it was recorded.
So yeah, I think we should end it there. You've got to get going. So thank you guys for a fun podcast. Season 2, episode 2. Any final words?
A beat a week starting next week.
Oh yeah, beat a week starting next week. Let's do it.
Am I joining in?
Panny's doing it.
I'll do
beat
it
a week starting next week. Oh god.
I'm just gonna put I'm just gonna put the link in everywhere.
I don't know that I have time for this. But let's see.
We'll see.
We'll see. Cool. All right.
Thank you.